What's up, everybody? Paul E. Hendricks. This is Strain on Society. The E stands for extraordinary. If you were wondering, if you want to be accurate or you want your alternative facts, you could go with Eric. But whatever, if you want to be a dick about it. Yeah, my coffee mug is fucked. Well, I've been drinking a lot of coffee, been up um, relatively early, 6 o'clock a.m. And I said I was taking a break until the new year, so why would I be here? It's 3 days after Christmas, and we're in that kind of week that nobody knows what's going on during that week. You're kind of just hanging there. You're off your Christmas high. You're waiting for the new year. So I thought, why wouldn't I do this? Because I had a wild Christmas, and I wanted to share my experience with everyone here regarding mental health and my experience I had over Christmas. I filmed a video. Recorded a video rather and put it out on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube the day before Christmas Eve, where I was so excited and I was sharing my enthusiasm about giving and all of that, just how much I love the holiday. I love the joy of giving and picking out gifts for people, and shared all that. And then within 24 hours, I was on easily the opposite side of that. I was triggered, and things went dark really, really fast. And why do I want to share that with you and bring it up? Because when like Chester from, God help me, I forgot the name of the band, but when you see like people that are famous or celebrities commit suicide, and they'll say, well, this is a picture of them 2 days before, and they're smiling and they're happy, and then it's so hard to understand and digest, well, what could have happened in those couple days? And maybe sharing my experience will help those that don't understand, and give a voice to those who have experienced this and understand this and live with this. So I generally talk about mental health as I've been going through therapy for years. I do the work. I put in a lot of hard work, and I'm having a lot of positive results from it as far as building new healthy neural pathways. Whereas before, my default, based on trauma and how I grew up, I have CPTSD, which is complex PTSD, and major depressive disorder and anxiety disorder. So, and anxiety disorders. There's different ones. Anyway, how quickly it can happen. I was in such a good mood. I was actually enthusiastic the night before, like kind of like a kid, Like I was sitting there, we were watching probably A Christmas Story, or maybe we weren't. We were watching something different, and my wife went to bed, and I was just kind of had that excitement, like I couldn't sleep, like, oh, tomorrow's Christmas and blah blah blah. And I was just excited about it. Maybe a part of that was because of the year 2020 has been, it's been hard to have things to look forward to now. But I have looked forward to things and done those things. But there was just an extra added dose of excitement for this, and I contribute a lot of that to this year. It's just something to look forward to and unwrap some gifts. And that morning I was excited, and we were unwrapping gifts, and a gift just happened to trigger me. It wasn't the intent of the gift giver, but that it happened. And I went from opening the present and kind of looking at it to attempting to hide immediately the feelings that I had about it, and tried to hide that. And there's a couple gifts, and then 10 minutes later, I was asked. I couldn't hide it from the expression on my face how I was disappointed, and it kept feeding itself like fast. I don't know, like Pac-Man, just anger. Another way I can explain it is, think about the fireworks in Washington D.C. every July 4th, and just the explosion goes off. So as I'm building new neural pathways through therapy and through the work that I do, at the same time, the other neural pathways still exist, and they can still get triggered. And what it looks like is, a little tiny explosion of fireworks to begin with, like the beginning. And then all of a sudden, all those other little neural pathways surrounding that major default neural pathway of pain, and it goes back to all those things of hurt, like fireworks, and so they all start going off, and it happens. I want to say it's almost instantaneous, but it was over, not long, 10, 20 minutes, where it went from disappointment to I felt unseen, attacked even. So within that short amount of time, all the joy I had, all the enthusiasm I had, all the excitement I had, all the feelings of excitement and wonder and Christmassy, and I had been very Christmassy this year. I was definitely in the spirit, sucked out of me, gone instantaneously. Like I said, not instantaneously, but over that time, it seemed just rapid fire. And I freaked out. And once I explained the disappointment, what happens with me and most people with anxiety is anxiety shows itself with anger. Once the fight or flight, it's like being a wounded animal, and that's just the feeling I get in the way I express it. And so it's fight or flight. Now I want to fight. I'm backed into a corner. I'm wounded, and I'm good at fighting. I'm a wordsmith, a man of letters. I'm really good. I'm really fast. I'm really clever, and I can cut the shit out of you with words. And that attack starts, and I feel under attack, and then it just progresses into what I call falling down the steps of depression, where it's a couple steps, you stumble, I'm trying to grab my balance, and the next thing you know, boom, 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 I'm going down all the way to the bottom. And when I get to the bottom, I'm just fighting. And so I'm in that battle all Christmas Day. I put away, looking in hindsight, it's embarrassing. I put away all the Christmas decorations. I took them down, took everything, put it away. I was so angry. I was so hurt. And that hurt was expressing itself. And angry, mean. It was like the pain that I felt had an open platform, and the depression and the CPSD it was expressing itself through me, and so I talk about I have to take responsibility for CPTSD, major depressive disorder, and anxiety. I have them, and I use this metaphor with my therapist all the time, and I use it with other people, and I'm trying to explain it through maybe a way that's easier to see. Is Diane and I run a pit bull rescue. So sometimes when we've dealt with pit bulls throughout our lives, sometimes some dogs don't want us to be around. And in the case of being the leader, I have to still take that pit bull out, feed it. We have to take care of it. Its vet's needs, all those things, no matter how mad that dog is. And so no matter how much that dog's fighting me as I'm holding the leash, I still have to control it. And I look at that with depression as it's something that I have, and if I'm going to be the leader, I have to maintain leadership. But what happens when I don't? What happens when that dog gets the best of me? If I use that analogy, right now I would be sitting here with stitches all throughout my body because that dog got a hold of me, and it was about a 36-hour fight with that dog. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that don't have PTSD, don't have depression and anxiety. Is so you think about remember if you've ever gotten into a fight, or you've gotten into a car accident, or you've had one of those moments of fight or flight, and how it happens, and it drains you of everything, it makes you so exhausted, and your emotions and your nerves are rattled. Whew, and then it's over, and then you want to go to sleep or cry or whatever. And imagine that. This is why a lot of military have it. Imagine that same panic, that same adrenaline rush, the same cortisol being released, stress into your body, that fight or flight, except it goes on for 36 hours. How detrimental that is to one's body, to one's mind, to one's psyche, to one's emotional state, physical state. It's like being in a firefight, and that's why a lot of military folks suffer PTSD, because your body stays in that space for so long. We're not meant to stay in that. That's a physiological response to danger, fight or flight. but it releases all the things in your to make your body super hyper aroused brain, clear, function, focus, protect yourself, survive over 36 hours. And that's not even like this is today's Monday, and this is from Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Friday morning, Saturday, all day Friday, Saturday into the evening, and then yesterday, I was able to let it release, and I experienced it. And so what happens when I lose? I'm not the leader. How do I take responsibility for how I react when I'm in my shit, when I'm falling down the stairs, and when I've landed, and when I'm fight or flight? Because it's not real in the sense of it's not an outside source I'm fighting, but it's very real internally. And I can look at it in hindsight now. And, I when I feel under attack, I go on the attack. And with my wife, I apologized. And at the same time, how do I know my feelings are valid? My anger is valid. And yet it sets me off into a place that's a disease. And I lose control of that dog, or I lose control of the monster. That's what I call it. And the monster starts to win. And it's like, and people might take issue with this. I'm just using analogies. What if my wife had cancer, skin cancer before, and it was on her foot, and she had to be on a crutch and have surgery and all kinds of things that were really painful, skin grafts. And she was tired of it, I'm sure, throughout the recovery, throughout the whole process. My mom had cancer, my dad, that when you're just worn down, and you can't just say cancer, stop cancering. You know what I mean? And so it's hard for me how do you tell depression or the monster to stop depressioning, stop PTSDing, stop anxietying, stop being a fucking monster. Stop. And it's not like I tell it to, and then it gets to a point after so many hours of being worn down that it's a request, and then it comes to begging. Please stop, please. That's where people get into that space of fight or flight, and the only way to win or the only way to get out is flight. Except that flight means ending their lives. And that's why you can see pictures of people smiling a day before they commit suicide or 2 days before, is because that fight takes on, that fight or flight, that monster attack, that overwhelming attack of depression can take hold like that. And then the next thing you know, I was just happy and joyful on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I'm in a battle where suicidal ideations do present themselves. And that might sound scary to some of y'all, but it's not scary to me because it's not new. This is my life for 40-something years. I'm really tired of it. That's why I'm in fucking therapy, working toward being better, but also with the understanding that this is something that I always will live with, be it maybe at different levels, and I have different levels of understanding and mastery of it, and that's why I keep going to therapy. But it also, there's that issue when I first started doing personal development classes, where you have all this information in it, and it makes all this sense, but your behaviors don't change immediately, even though you have the new information. So awareness plus no immediate shifts can be depressing and can be hard on your psyche, because now I know the results can be different. I know a different answer. I know a different solution, but I don't necessarily implement them right away because my behavior hasn't changed. And that's a real frustration, believe me. And so even in this situation, so I understand a very layman way how neural pathways are developed, how they work, how trauma affects neural pathways or creates neural pathways. PTSD, and then I was re-diagnosed with CPTSD, and understanding the arguments, whether they're just components of one another, but understanding the difference and why I was re-diagnosed, and that gives me pause before all the self-judgment I've had my entire life. And I can understand that I don't like when I feel that way. It destroys me physically, mentally, emotionally, my psyche, and it hurts my relationships, and I have to rebuild myself and them and go back between what's valid response and what's a hyperbolic response and too much, and when did the monster take over? What did that fight feel like in resisting it? What happened when I surrendered to it is the emotions and how much it hurt, but how much faster I go through it without the fighting and without the resistance. But there's also the suicidal ideations that are involved in that. There's a whole lot of things that happen throughout that thought process that I'm trained to deal with and I struggle so hard with. I even reached out on Facebook just to say I'm not having a Merry Christmas, and I wanted some kind of immediate boost because I wasn't finding any kind of dopamine, serotonin, and I needed some, and I got it when I did that. 200 something comments within a very short amount of time, and I'm so grateful for those just funny memes, dog pictures, and I got the boost. And then I went out in search of it in other ways. I don't even barely drink anymore, and I went out and had a couple drinks because I knew my friend Jordan was bartending at the Lowdown, and for some reason Jordan is one of those beams in my life that whenever I'm around him, he brings me a sense of calm. And I went and saw him, and then I happened to run into my friend Kyle, who's the producer for the Least We Could Do podcast that I had Dwayne on a few weeks ago, who's one of the co-hosts, and I ran into Kyle, who's the producer, and we just had a nice chat. And he didn't know I was experiencing that, and it turned to find out he had been having a bad Christmas too, and I texted him later and said that, and thanked him for the conversation, and just being around Kyle also. He's just a good dude. Just being around, like, when you're around good people, and that energy I needed to be boosted, because my energy was destroying my household. My wife, my relationship with them, my dogs were terrified just because of me. My energy, my aggressive, violent energy, and I don't mean violent in the terms of physical, but violent in the terms of wanting to destroy, wanting to hurt. That energy was palpable. My dogs, of course, could tell, and they were hiding from me. My wife didn't want to be around me, and I was nowhere to go. I drove all the way up to Pflugerville from South Austin, looking for like a cafe that was open because it was morning, and just somewhere I could sit, and because I knew I needed to get out because it was going to get worse. And I came back, and I left a couple times and just drove around Austin that day on Christmas, trying to do whatever I could do, trying to calm down the monster, trying to get it under control. Man, it was biting the shit out of me. And then after I went through all the anger and all the feelings of being attacked and the victimization, and it wasn't just thoughtless. It was like this gift was aggressively given to me as an attack, meant to trigger me. And that's not true. But that's, in that moment, I will find every way to defend that hypothesis and make up every story in my head to defend that. Because there's a lot of stories about me that monster wants to make true. And in that case, it was, I'm not seen. I'm not understood. I'm a side thought, an afterthought. I'm not worthy of being loved. All those aren't true. But that's what came out, and violently, and then as I allowed it to play itself out in me, because usually I could stay in resistance, and then that behavior, that despair can go on for days, sometimes weeks, and that's towards the end of that. I remember like a 14-day run one time where by the end I was ready to end it. I was so exhausted. It was like 14 days not sleeping, feeling like it was like constant fight or flight. I was ready to throw in the towel. The only thing that stopped me and prevented me was because I was doing Bully Ranch, because I love my wife, because there's so many things that I want to do that keep me going, that keep me excited about life, and that's more powerful than wanting to give up. But if you ever think, this guy, and I know I'm handsome, I look like I have it all together, and I have depression under lock and key and all that. I don't. And I'm a smart guy, and I'm in a relationship with my favorite person, second favorite person in the world, me being my first. My best friend, someone that I just adore and love and I follow, and I'm living out my vision and dreams even throughout a pandemic. Starting this podcast over 2020, the Pitbull Rescue, working and finishing this book, and having all these things going, and I'm really well liked and loved, and have people that adore me as friends, and even still, like that can slip and fall down those steps. To all that know what I'm talking about, maybe that's my point. Despair is shit. Despair sucks. Thinking there's no way out sucks. But if you can hold on, I don't know why Wilson Phillips just popped into my head. Remember the sisters, or Brian Wilson's, I don't remember, friends, whatever. Hold on for one more day. All right, I'm going to punch myself in the face after this for singing that. But I held out. And I had to. And then I'm on the other side in hindsight, and it's still very raw emotionally to me, which makes me very raw. And one of the things that I learned through this is I post a lot of Facebook. I always do, like Pandemic 2020 crib talks. I post a lot about me and my wife, and we get along well, and we love each other, and we have a lot of fun. And I think it's only fair to be just as honest as marriage is also hard. And hard in the aspect of when I want to love unconditionally and fully. And that means when I give all of myself, I have wounds based on trauma. And I take the guard down from those wounds because I express myself damn near perfectly with my wife, and it's something that I've practiced to be able to do that, and explain and understand how I feel. I don't even know, I'm kind of high now. Why did I bring that up? But what that also does is, for me, if I want to truly love and feel the encompassment of all that love, is to love that freely. It makes me vulnerable, open to hurt. Particularly, excuse me. Oh, shit. Well, that's fun. I coughed and spilled coffee on me, but it's a weed smoking podcast, so we can do. So, for me to love fully, to give myself to my relationships fully, those that I'm fully committed to and invested in. Because I have other relationships, you say whatever fuck you want about me, I care less. But in my loving and primary relationship, particularly with my wife, I give myself to that for fully. There's no guards. Where that used to not always be the case. And there is no way possible to do that unguarded without leaving myself vulnerable. So even though those wounds that I have healed, they're still the wounds. And the more I love, the hotter the knife comes, and it's like a warm knife in butter. And those wounds can be opened. And it doesn't even matter the intent. That's not the intent. It's because I'm vulnerable. And so that's a part of being in a relationship, is it can be hard because your other partner, when they're vulnerable and you don't communicate it effectively, like maybe I didn't communicate effectively. And my wife certainly doesn't want to open a wound or trigger me. My wife loves me. I'm a fucking great dude. But it happens nonetheless. It's part of love. It's part of being in love. It's part of being love, is opening up myself to that vulnerability, to open myself up to even accidental pokes, stabs, jabs. And I wouldn't change it, even though that sucked. And I got triggered, and I'd rather work on not letting, being able to prevent that, or at least controlling the dog more. And that doesn't mean I'm going to, so what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop loving as much as I love. It means I have to be more aware. I also have to, it's so hard in that spot to empathize with somebody else, because it's all about me. comes about my bubble, my victimhood, my struggle, the attack on me. I'm now in defense mode, and it goes back and tells all those stories that I told myself as a child of being unworthy, of not being loved, of literally living living in a household where one had to be fight or flight, one had to be on edge, one had to be aware, hyper aware at all times, because you never knew when an attack was going to surface or where it was going to come from, and getting triggered like that took me right back to that. And so it's fear, and so it was a wild, couple days. I said I'm not participating in Christmas ever again. I love Christmas. I'm participating, but in those moments, and I wanted to hurt my wife. I wanted her to feel the pain that I was feeling, and that's where the responsibility comes in. So those of you that suffer from this or experience it, I don't want to say suffer from, because it's just something I have to live with. There is an amount of suffering because I allow myself to suffer from it. And that's just my honest, how I feel about it. But the most empowered I feel is when I don't go victim to it. Is when I say, when I am leading this, and even now saying I have this and I'm the leader of it, and sometimes they're fucking gonna get me. It's gonna bite me. The dog is gonna go at me, and I'm gonna have to take them. I'm gonna take them. And now what do I learn from this experience that can prevent that dog from getting at me again, or the next time this comes up? And that's how I learn and grow. But I still have to look at what's about the damage I caused. So yeah, I have CPTSD. I have major depression. I have anxiety, an anxiety disorder, and there's a wake in that storm. When that storm comes to me, there's a wake. I leave a wake with my dogs, with my wife, most importantly, with myself. The damage, the physical damage, the mental damage, psychological damage, emotional damage. Whew, it's exhausting, and it hurts. And how am I? So I'm responsible, and I apologize. Yet there's where I'm at a loss, and what I've been thinking about is when I'm in the grips of that monster and I'm fighting and I'm becoming a monster. When I know it happens and it's happening, and I take responsibility for it, while at the same time I have a mental health disease. I guess that my question I don't understand is I don't know how to prevent it from ever happening again. I can't say this will never happen again. I'll never have this experience again, to myself or to Diane, and it's just hard to take that responsibility and know I'm working really hard with through therapy, and just on myself, and getting and feeling improvements and gains, and yet it still happens. It can still happen in such dramatic fashion, and so quickly. It's definitely a 2 steps back, except the ability to be over it now and have the hindsight and to address it and address every little piece of it and how I set myself up for it. And look how I can be better with taking responsibility for my expectations, in so many different ways. And there are a lot of different things I could have done different. That's just me taking responsibility and explaining that. Luckily, I have a wife that knows. She has an undergrad degree in psychology. We met when she was social workers. She is the one who encouraged me to go to therapy for years, until I finally heeded her advice and went, and understands. And yet it still takes a toll on her. She still has her own shit that I dump on, and I know her triggers and I know her shit well because we're in a relationship together, and I will poke them to hurt her, and that's not who I want to be at all. In fact, my goal is to build her up. I see my wife as such a powerful woman. She just is, and I follow her in a lot of ways. And so that's what I've been struggling with over the last few days, or last couple days. How do I how do I take responsibility? And I can't change that, something that's already happened, and I can't ensure that it won't happen again. I can only keep going in my healing journey. And maybe, I mean, I say I'm doing this podcast hoping that other people relate. Maybe that's why I'm doing it. And maybe for those that don't understand what it looks like inside, somebody that has PTSD and depression and anxiety, and sharing this story gives a little more insight, sheds a little more light on the battle that you could never tell from the outside. You can, but inside it's like World War fucking whatever. And sometimes it feels like it's a fight for one's life, for my life, when I'm in that situation, and you could never tell from the outside, and it's so hard to explain to those that don't understand it. And for those that do, I'm here with you, man. I'm here with y'all. Doesn't like COVID, when I mentioned in my last one, this depression, PTSD doesn't care about any skin color, ethnicity, doesn't give a fuck, political party, belief systems, religion. It doesn't care. It affects everybody. It has different effects on other people, but people understand. And for all of you guys, man, I get it, and I share and empathize with you, and share my love with you, and know that keep going. Find some goals and dreams that you have that are so worthy of you, so worthy of your effort, so worthy of your talent, so worthy of your time, so worthy of your smarts, so worthy of your resources, that sometimes that's the why that you find necessary to keep going. Because that's one of the things I have. I have a wonderful relationship with someone that I want to be with till the day I die. And what I have stirring in my pot right now excites me every day. I like waking up in the morning, between doing this podcast, learning more about cannabis, pit bull advocacy, pit bull rescue, writing. I mean, my shit's just going. My shit's have a lot of fun, and that's my why. And that why sometimes is the hand that pulls me out of the quicksand. It's the rope that gets me off the edge. It's the helicopter that God sent. If anybody knows about the little story I'm talking about, that anyway. And I encourage everybody else, find some goals, find some dreams, because I promise you're worthy of every dream you have, or you wouldn't have it. So find yourself worthy of those and keep going towards them. And when needed, and if necessary, use that use that dream as your why. And get real deep with your why. The deeper you're attached to your why, the more strength it'll give you when you need it. So I want to thank everybody. I was smoking Apple Jacks. I think I've already done a review on it. This light's so bright on my forehead. I hope it's not blinding, folks. And I love you guys. I really hope happy holidays. Have a great New Year's Eve. I'm not going to be doing shit except smoking weed. Probably eat some edibles. And I love y'all. And if you're struggling out there, I'm with you. And if you're having a great time out there and celebrating, I'm with you too. I love you. Thanks for loving me very much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye, y'all.